what has happened now and then or whatever here and whatnot, you have had a pretty freaking illustrious career, and I'm pretty sure there's more to come.
Oh yeah.
So to move on from that, I see you on your Instagram stories. You're working out quite a lot. Like man's doing Rocky film, but bro, you punch like a girl.
Whoa.
But, you working out for something?
First of all, you're
Whoa.
talking
You punch
talking to the guy from the country that has Manny Pacquiao as their
You are
prized
not Manny
possession.
Pacquiao.
And
But you're not.
you know, Manny Pacquiao still lives in the same country as me, so I most probably have the same power in a sense. Okay,
So, yes, Marlon, this is my first interview.
pop your cherry.
I've never done. I've done an interview, but I've never conducted an interview.
Yeah, and at least you know you're eloquent. I understand what you're saying, so good job.
So yeah,
it's a
you
great
popped my
start.
cherry. And look, I'm proud of you, man.
Yes.
Finally, here you are, all those years, and you're on the StratXchange, the premier podcast, I think.
Yeah, no, who would have thought?
Anyway, so yeah, back to the fitness thing. Are you like preparing for something that you're not telling your fans about? You're not telling me about? Huh?
I'm just preparing for my Calvin Klein campaign. I got the text, so every day you need the washboard abs on it. No, but the fitness thing, honestly, that kind of started because one, I'm preparing for a potential race seat, you know, and being fit, prepared. That's our job. You're supposed to do that. Just like knowing which way the track goes, that's your job. You're supposed to do that. So fitness, that's always been hand in hand with my racing career. So I kind of started like a program, but also really like, you know, with the lockdowns happening here in the Philippines, gyms shutting down and not being able to really like work out in like a proper space, I decided to really focus on like, you know, if let's say a gym is open or closed or not, I want to be able to train myself and get fitter regardless if it's at home or anywhere I can be. So
Right.
getting like a routine and a fitness regimen, which is really like the last 5 weeks, it's been amazing. You know, we made this whole Race Fit campaign and kind of included what I do as workouts for racing. But at the same time, it was just to showcase like what dedication it takes to be a racing driver, be an athlete, but also maybe people at home, if they saw the stories, for instance, for a Race Fit campaign, they could get inspired and maybe take away like any of the activities I was showcasing online, right? Because it's not using crazy equipment, right? We're using kettlebells, you're using the ground a lot, gravity, and you'd be surprised like how fit you can get with only having so little. You know, the kettlebells are great because it's a full range of motion. You're using all your muscles to balance this piece of weight, and you really get a full body workout. So for me, actually, I'm happy that I learned that, you know, regardless if a gym is open or not, I can basically see any space or be at home and use that to exercise my body and just, you know, stay fit, especially when we can't move around as much during these times as well.
So there is something in the pipeline. We are going to see you in a seat, are we not?
Yeah, I mean, it's in the works, right? These things
the
take
works.
time. It's part of being the racing driver as well. You know, it's not just your performances sometimes on the track. There's a lot of business behind it, negotiations, talking to the teams, being proactive about it. You have to show people that you want to be in the sport, and even if times are hard or not, or you know, you have the budget or not, if you really commit yourself and find the way, you know, teams really appreciate that and you create those opportunities. So I'm really excited for the potential of what next season could be. It's a bit different to how I've been doing most of my career, honestly, but if it means getting me back into a proper championship and a real car and something that's high tier and on a world level, then I mean, this is the goal that we're aiming for. So a lot of things in the works. I can't really announce it yet. Hopefully I could announce it soon. But there are a couple things in the pipeline for racing, which I'm sure further down the line I'll be able to, you know, announce them.
Hey, I'm looking forward to it, man. I want to see you race. I have not seen you race.
Yeah.
My friend.
No,
Right.
we're working on it. We're working on it.
So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, anyway, we go forward now. So, recently, in more recent times, of course, you, I guess you have a reputation as an influencer. And more, if we go deeper than that, I mean, you've done all the campaigns, so if you go further than that, you're more of a streamer too, video games. So influencer, streamer, whatever you want to call it. How did that transition come along? Is it really a transition? I mean, from athlete to influencer slash streamer. Like, how's that?
I think it just came hand in hand with being on a platform that is racing, right? I mean, part of your job is like you have sponsors plastered all over you constantly. You have, teams that basically invest in you as a driver as well. So you learn very quickly how to basically deal with media and, promote yourself to a certain degree. I mean, in this day and age, social media, as much as possible, people start to understand the whole influential aspect becoming sort of a business model, right? I mean, digital is the way forward. When I started my career, pretty much like print, magazines, newspapers, articles were the main thing, but that really took a quick transition to everything becoming digital and to a certain extent, promoting yourself and doing these synergies with brands. So I think with racing, that really created a unique opportunity, to work with corporate companies, to do events, to deal with customers that, had this corporate world that could, delve into the motorsport side and promote by either putting sponsorships or having, sponsors on your race suit and all these things. It really has like this other side to it, which I think is very interesting from an entrepreneurship side, a business side, to help create platforms for brands, for instance. And it's just one thing that you kind of have to think about, right? Your time behind the wheel isn't forever as a racing driver. We all know that as an athlete, you have a certain period of time in your life where you work at your prime, and then it's what's the next stage, because you have a lot of life left to live there and after when you're not at the track. So even if it means that I don't necessarily get behind the wheel, I think I'm always looking and creating new opportunities in which basically, you're able to use the platform that is motorsport. And it's a unique one, right? I mean, if you look at the business model of Formula One, it's one of the most viewed broadcasts in terms of sports across the whole world. I think it's only second pretty much to football. And I mean, no one can really compete with the popularity of football. It's so easy to pick up. But I think with all things considered in Formula One, in such an exclusive sort of fast-paced world, there's a really huge interest when it comes to it. And it's really always created these unique opportunities for myself to work outside of the racetrack. And I think that's how the whole influential role kind of naturally took its course alongside with my racing.
Wow, very insightful. I mean, if you go a bit further than that, of course, there's the entrepreneurship and the business side that ties into your role as an influencer. But I think there's another part of it that is somewhat passion-driven, and that is you playing video games on stream. Honestly, okay, wait, I have a very important question for you. What do you think is going to be the biggest streaming platform within the next 5 years? Do you think TikTok would venture into that? Facebook dies, Twitch explodes even more?
I think, I've delved into esports a lot. I mean, streaming myself, trying to understand basically this new medium that's really boomed. I think especially during the time that Ninja started streaming Fortnite. It just took this massive turn for the whole industry. He was reaching viewership and numbers that were never seen before.
Drake.
Yeah, collabs with like artists, influencers, like the creme de la creme in terms of for video gaming. It just blew up, right? And I think with the trends we're seeing now, it's still very diabolical and chaotic in a sense that you're always trying to, from a publisher perspective, trying to understand what's the next big game that's going to be there. Because one day it could be COD, and then the next is suddenly Apex, or there was Fortnite before, or then a dark horse like racing industry suddenly gets more prominent with sim racing as well. The industry is very difficult to, I think, predict how things are going, but I think if you're involved in which obviously I started to get involved with racing because there's a virtual to reality aspect that comes at least with the esport programs that are being established. So my main interest in the field really came for that because I actually taught the first team for the Philippines in the Nissan GT Academy in 2015. And it was basically Nissan's way with PlayStation to find the fastest racing driver through video games and develop them into a proper racing driver. So I was part of the program as the coach for Team Philippines. That year we actually won the championship, and we had the driver from the Philippines. Actually, all three of our drivers were good enough to beat all the other countries with more motorsport history, like Malaysia, Japan, India even has a racing track, a Formula One track as well.
Lord Mahathir.
Thailand, like all these illustrious countries that have a bit more racing history and maybe even better tracks than we do here in the Philippines. And our group beat them all, So then I really had this understanding, like, with advances in technology, that really the gap between virtual to reality gets closer. Also, the traits you practice, driving the wheel, how to brake, how to throttle. I think it's no other publisher or gaming genre really does that the same way. And to a certain degree, if you really drive properly in the video game and you win races and you're fast, to a certain degree, that talent also translates to the circuit, because you have a certain understanding or concept of how a car should be driven fast. So I think for the future, it was important for me to look into that, because I think for the future, it really sets the tone as a new grassroots for racing. Because we have the stereotype that our grassroots, and a grassroots by definition means school, right? But our school is not affordable. Like go-karting at the highest level, you're looking at budgets of over $250,000 US to be and competing with the best team. And that's the first step at the top level with the best team if you want to have any chance of winning races against the best drivers. But having, for instance, a sim rig or the video game, easy, cheaper way to get into the sport. And I think if people, which a lot of people start doing now, they create programs to really transition that virtual to reality aspect and develop drivers and get them, hopefully with a chance of going into the sport. Now, at the time, the kid that won it, he basically got a £500,000 sponsorship deal from Nissan. They housed him in a condo, they trained him every day, and prepared him to be a Nissan GT Academy driver, racing in like a proper car, So that whole program went really well. So I think with a lot of things now that I do with Toyota, with Radical, that really got me invested in looking into esports, getting more involved, and not only enjoying it. I mean, I enjoy playing with you guys. It's still a fun time. It's a unique, different way, I think, to engage with your followers and your fans. Obviously, they know me more for racing, and of course, I'll say it here, my skill in racing is definitely a lot better than it is, clicking heads on COD, right? So,
Yeah.
But that's kind of where it all started. So I really wanted to get a deeper understanding. There was really more depth to the reasons why I got into gaming a bit more, to really see how to apply this in my field, in my career, and for hopefully the next generation.
So you take the gaming industry quite seriously, like it's contender for one of the biggest things in the world. And also, based on what you said about like sim racing and racing in video games, I want to ask you, motorsport does have a reputation for being only accessible to the wealthy, and based off what you said, do you see that sim racing and all that bridges the gap to make it so that pursuing a career in motorsports is accessible to everyone? And you do have some initiatives going on, right?
Yeah, so I've been working on some virtual to reality concepts, especially with Radical, so hopefully we can tie that in for the future. I mean, which, hopefully in the future I want to be able to tie a virtual concept in which we can pool the best sim racers, that do have a skill set, that have an intellect and potentially a talent to be in racing, and bridge that gap. Because finding sponsors, especially in this day and age in COVID, I mean, the whole world economy has been really affected. So it's not easy to come across an investor, a sponsor, or a family that will just say like, hey, yeah, we'll pay your racing career $250,000 to race with top team in Europe, no problem. That's actually a big problem.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to break the stereotype. I want to kind of hand the football to the player finally, and not have to go through this expensive process to reach motorsport, and which I think it is achievable. Now if people say that racing's so expensive, it's so hard to get into, actually you're wrong. A lot of people have just started through video games, had enough of a passion, pursued it, and just by buying the F1 game online, they found their way into working with the F1 team or doing their test day in a Formula car. So the stereotype, I think it's breaking, and the mold of that really around it is disappearing. And really I would like the sport to get humbled with these concepts, which is already being done. The FIA does it. There's certain concepts around Southeast Asia, and it's one program that I'd like to do to really develop grassroots motorsports here in the Philippines as well.
Okay, so of course you're athlete, influencer, content, gaming streamer, content creator. Do you really put a lot of thought into creating content, to keep your engagement rates high, your views high? Do you like pay a lot of attention to that sort of thing?
I think there's no doubt that you think about these things, right? But what I learned was, to a certain degree, I always just did what the least I could, really, because I was more focused about racing. But, I did have sort of a passion. I kind of had always a little bit of a vision of what I wanted to try and achieve and new things to do. I mean, to a certain degree, like the idea of doing this podcast with you guys on StratXchange, I think this is a great platform. And, kind of like having the setting we have now is kind of like part of the vision of how much I care about really trying to bring the best quality and immerse people in something that's meaningful and purposeful. I think if you always find like a why and do it with purpose, whatever content you create will always come across genuine. And we're not, I think you have to really pull kind of way of trying to like sell people things. You want to tell them stories. And I think really like, cars, the track, the culture, the food around it, the perspectives. I think that's the story, especially when it comes to car manufacturers and, in this day and age, I think that's more important to me to kind of communicate and get across. Not just make it your standard, like, selling point, like, hey, this is me with a product and, you should like it. Like, you don't want to be kind of like this billboard image that you see on the streets and stuff. You want to give people a story and something to follow, build the community around it. So I think over the years, I've gotten better at that. And because I do get behind the camera, I do try and learn how to take pictures. And there's no way that I'm the best at it. But I think in this field, you shouldn't be worried if you're making mistakes or failing at things, because every failure, every lesson you learn from that only makes you better. So I kind of like broke this fear of like, I'd rather not do it than, now I just say like, yeah, let's go for it. What's the worst that it could do to you? You're not gonna die trying, right? Like it's only gonna make you stronger. And I think in a world like this, entrepreneurship, influential content, working with brands, doing these synergies, working in a sport like racing, which is like so chaotic and crazy as well, full of adrenaline. You kind of have to just not worry about, failing and just trying and doing your best. And then you find sort of your own narrative and something people can identify with. And I think that's where it grows. That's where it comes. That's where it becomes more important. If only 100 people like your post or whatever, that doesn't matter. You're still reaching 100 people and you should be proud about that. You know what I mean? And not worry so much if it's doing well or not. Take out that mentality because it can get very negative, obviously, in this sort of world, right? Digital, online. Everyone has an opinion. But I think you just have to, as long as you're happy with what you're creating, what you're doing, and you feel it brings you a lot of purpose, and it's very hard to find that sometimes, I think that's what you should feel content with, regardless of the views or engagements, because that comes along naturally because you're putting content out there that's very natural, meaningful, and something that people can identify with,
Wow, love that. A why and a purpose. I love that, man. I didn't know you're such a profound guy. But you know what? Those were some amazing points.
I read a lot of Marcus Aurelius. My philosophical side is coming on. So.
Wow, you're amazing. Look at you go, man, Socrates. All right. Right. So, interesting take, Mr. Content Creator. And Mr. Content Creator means you're also an influencer to a certain degree. You are an influencer. You've worked with numerous brands. So honestly, we would love to hear like what it's like, the whole back and forth, like the interaction between the brand and the influencer. I'm pretty sure for you have a management, you have a team. So maybe you can tell us like what that's like, the whole back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, so when it comes to, let's say, Marlon, the racing driver, there's always a management side to that would help operate, sponsorships or sponsorship activations, my racing activities, to what was put on my suit, to what I would have to think after every race weekend, as you normally see in Formula One, right? It's all about the branding and like how you can communicate that with sponsors. I mean, from the other side as well, if you're like as an individual and like you're a talent for a brand, there's obviously the whole process of having a management that might take more of like the entertainment side of your business, right? As a face, as a product, as a ambassador to a certain brand or company, So again, that's a different set of skills to learn and operate with there too. And then obviously for creating or producing your own content, which is what I'm getting more into, and trying to basically create content that you can repeat with a certain team, work with good people, create a vision, have a goal, set them throughout the year in a calendar. So I think I've gone through pretty much being the athlete, being in front of the camera, behind the camera, producing content, helping also other people think of ideas. It's really kind of come full circle. And I think the best part that I learned about, going through with all of this was really just being hands-on with it and having, looking at the contracts yourself, having an understanding, right? As much as you are as an athlete, I think when it comes to your life and certain businesses you do, I think you have to take it under your own responsibility to be aware and proactive in those processes. It's one, just from a legal standpoint, you have a better understanding. You know what you're getting yourself involved with. I mean, in some cases, there can be a lot of money involved with the project. So you want to know what the work and the output you're doing, if it's justifiable with, let's say, what you're getting paid to do or what you're getting paid to talk about and what you love or experience and all those things. And I think business, sport, any which side, I think, if you really take responsibility for what you get yourself involved with and being part of the process from start to finish, you always end up seeing better campaigns, better partnerships flourish through that because you have an understanding from as well the business side. So I found that to be really important, and you also start to learn it, right? I mean, at a certain point, like I was also able to manage, let's say, deals for myself because I had got myself involved before. When I was a lot younger, when I was just about the racing, I never really thought about that. But then as I got older, I really started to see the importance of just being able to know how to, address a room that involves these projects, these partnerships, these campaigns, and it's a good learning experience. And even to helping or manage other, let's say, athletes, racing drivers, or potential influencers, if they ask you advice, you're just more well educated about it because you know what step one to the finish line is.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's funny you mentioned that about athletes and content creation. I just want to ask you something real quick about what we have on the F1 grid right now. The likes of Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, and those lot. Do you think that as an athlete, being able to have a reputation as a content creator, that in a way increases your value? So when the time comes that Lando's contract runs out, do you think teams could look at that following he has as a plus point too, from his Twitch as a content creator? Do you think that plays a big part too?
I mean, of course. I think for his personal side, that's really very lucrative, because you're thinking about, let's say, your own individual future, not just within F1. You're using it as a platform, and every driver should do that. You have to be able to be proactive in a business sense, to sell yourself, to make yourself approachable, to be proactive, to communicate. Because, I mean, to a certain degree, yes, your on-track driving can do a lot of the talking, but you also have to be able to be presentable to the camera, to talk to the sponsors, entertain selected guests. So you kind of have to be this overall package. And of course, I mean, driving is still the most important, but that all plays a role, it's still a team sport. You still have sponsors, individuals getting involved. You have to find a way to be able to cater to all of that. And I think now with the transition from when I was racing, Bernie Ecclestone had a clamp down on all the TV rights. And unfortunately with the sponsors that I had at that time, it was hard to get coverage and be more the influencer like maybe how I am now as compared to back then because it was so restricted. I couldn't basically even have like a birthday picture at the track, like a selfie with the cake from the team. I couldn't post that because they had full control on any of the material we shot when we were at the tracks. So it became a hindrance because the local sponsors here that supported me, it was hard for them to get across media mileage other than, let's say, the racing events we do locally here when we had like the Lotus F1 car and we did road shows all across the city here in Manila, right? I mean,
yeah, I honestly, wow, that's interesting because when you speak about F1 embracing social media and how it was only accessible back then to people with cable TV. If you look at what's happening today, I think that cable TV is getting quite obsolete. It's starting to look like a fossil. Everything is live
it's becoming
services.
It's becoming the newspaper. Cable
Yeah.
television is becoming the newspaper. And you know this, like how many of us online, if you fully embrace it and you're into gaming, you understand these mediums and platforms and how much easier, and you know, it's like instead of waiting for the broadcast to basically showcase the program or like the sporting spectacle to you, you kind of want to just like watch it on your own time and your own accord. Whether you see it even live or not, it doesn't really matter as much. And I just think this whole content medium with the explosion of social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, now Twitch, all these streaming platforms, it's like you can basically tune into, let's say, a Twitch streamer and that suddenly becomes your favorite channel. Whereas before, my favorite channel as a kid was most probably growing up watching Cartoon Network and, you know, Ed, Edd and Eddy, and I had to wait a certain time till the next episode came out, right? You couldn't binge watch, you had to wait for the next thing to come out.
I'm so jealous of kids nowadays.
Yeah,
like,
now they have
episodes of Ed and Eddy. They could just binge watch the whole thing. They didn't have to wait at a certain time at a certain day. That pisses me off.
Yeah, it's just so
That
much
pisses me
more.
off.
So much more accessible, and I think, you know, as from a business point of view, from sporting perspective, I mean, the NBA did it great. They obviously American ownership again, but obviously the leagues based in America, they embraced you know, the whole blow up in social media straight away. And you saw the results of what it did to the league and how much popularity it got, how much more involved people, you know, seeing the players practice, the behind the scenes. You're starting to see things you never saw before. Before you would see what would happen on court, but now you can see everything from behind the scenes, the players getting ready, or in this case with racing, you see them, how they eat, the press conferences, the debriefs, the conversations with engineers. It's just so much more depth, and it really creates this sense of like you're actually there experiencing it. I still recommend, you know, anything in the real world, I think that still counts and that's valuable. But we have to accept that, you know, times are changing, and this seems to be like, sorry, there's a fly. There seems to be like this embrace that you need to have with social media and using the platforms, I mean, to everyone's benefit. And obviously with responsibility, it's very easy, you know, to get...
I see that fly.
Yeah, you see it? It's very easy to kind of get like lost in the sauce, as I like to say, when it comes to social media, right?
Such a good quote.
Yeah, it's very like different information. You really have to still pay attention, but I think if you're the one creating the content, you should also still be responsible because you're reaching so many thousands of people at the same time.
Okay, I've got a couple more questions for you. How many years do you think you have left in motorsport?
Till the day I die.
Till the day you die.
Yeah, this is, you know, being fast. Like once you just get a taste and you get caught by the bug, I don't know how I'll ever never try being fast in my life. And I think I just accepted it. That's really me. That's born into me. I think about it every day. Even if I'm not at the track, it's just something that's an obsession, a passion. And for as long as I can, and thankfully, like racing, I mean, you've seen people like Steve McQueen and all these cool guys racing into their late 50s or whatever, you know, like taking as forever, as much as they can. I'll race off into the sunset as much as I can with motorsports. So I don't think I can say I'm retiring anytime soon. That's for sure. I'll always keep pushing.
Yeah. Nice one, Doc Hudson. Keep going. All right.
Hey,
coming on the StratXchange.
You're ending it already, Seth? We gotta keep going. What?
With that being said, thank you for coming on the StratXchange, my man.
Hey, Seth.
I'll see you on Apex Legends. Don't be mean.
Yeah, no, I really...
All right, buddy. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you to StratXchange, to everyone, the whole crew and the team. I think this was super cool. Awesome to be able to shoot in this beautiful location. I know you're in the office still in Singapore, but hopefully you get to see each other soon too, Seth. And I appreciate it. That was really fun. Thanks a lot.
All right. Bye-bye, man. Have a great day. I'll see you soon.
That's it? We're good? Thank you.
Yep,
thanks, guys. Bye, Seth.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for watching this episode of the StratXchange. This one was an interesting one. If you enjoyed that, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below who you think our next guest should be. We'll see you later, guys.